First topic of the day. Um, I'm gonna be talking about the first season of Barry. That's right, HBO's Barry. It stars Bill Hader, Stephen Root, and Sarah Goldberg. Anthony Kerrigan. I mean, these probably you probably don't really know, but the main guy, the main dude, is Bill Hader. You know him from SNL and other comedies as well. He's a funny guy. He does impressions. He was on SNL. He's incredibly hilarious. But this is a little bit different. This is way different from what he used to. If you're unfamiliar with Barry, sort of the plot of Barry is that Bill Hader, he plays, a guy named Barry Berkman, and he's a hitman. He's a contract killer, and he also discovers that he wants to become an aspiring actor because he takes a hit in LA and he runs into an acting class and somehow or other falls in love with acting. So that's what the show is him trying to be a hitman and also be an actor at the same time, because both professions really don't go together. You can't really do one or the other, but it's just him trying to deal with that fact. Um, it's actually created by Bill Hader and a man named Alec Berg. I want to look at his filmography a little bit. Yeah, he's a producer on Curb Your Enthusiasm. He was on Seinfeld, I'm pretty sure, as well. So, yeah, pretty big dude in the industry. And Bill Hader is, I think they both write it as well. I mean, they're not the only writers, obviously, but they have a writer's room, but they're always in it. And it's kind of their brainchild, and it's like it's like comedic drama, dramedy. It's in that dramedy genre a little bit more towards the drama. I will surprisingly say so. Now this is on HBO, so I know a lot of people probably canceled their HBO subscriptions after what Game of Thrones did to them. I did. But I have a friend who has a Hulu account, and he also has the HBO addition to it. So I bummed that off of him. Thank you, Chewy, for you. If you're watching, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And this podcast also appreciates you and thanks you. Because both two of my topics today are from HBO, which is including this one. Can you hear my chair? Sorry if you can hear my chair. But with squeaking, whatever. But yeah, since Game of Thrones, it's kind of been like, there's really no reason to have HBO. There's Westworld, but I watched the first season. It was really great. I may or may not go back to it and review it on this podcast. We'll see how I feel in the future. But if you guys would want that, you can comment below and request it, and I'll do it. I'll rewatch it and get back to you on how I feel about it. But I like the first season, but I never watched the second or the third, and I didn't hear amazing things about it. So I was just like, whatever. I'll maybe later, some other time. But yeah. So I also kind of want to know how big of a hit HBO took after Game of Thrones, but whatever. This show Barry is a definite reason to get HBO though. If you can bomb HBO off of someone, or honestly, this is kind of worth it, man. Barry's really this show it's surprisingly phenomenal. It's pretty short. I think there's only 8 episodes in the first season. Each one's like a half an hour long. Plus, they have these little shorts of in the inside the episodes at the very end, which is really cool to see. How the episodes were made and what was being thought of in the writers' room, and what Bill Hader and Alec Berg were thinking with certain scenes. That's always really cool to see at the end of every episode. But yeah, in pretty much every way, the show really, really does well. I was kind of struggling with what the show doesn't do well, but let's get into what it does really well, and let's get into the specifics. So I said before that it's both a drama and a comedy. And this show nails both and has this perfect balance. It's not a direct balance. The show's funny, but it's more thrilling and suspenseful and dramatic, than comedic, in my opinion. But there are hilarious scenes and hilarious characters that we'll get into a little bit. But I mean, the plot itself is hilarious. A hitman trying to be an actor is just so bizarre and hilarious, and it's also played by Bill Hader, who surprisingly, I think some random fan is just going on outside. I'm sorry. Again, between you and me, I fucking hate this apartment. But yeah. So maybe in November, at the end of November, we'll be changing some scenery, and the set will probably look a lot better. I forgot to put these lights on. Oh, okay, there we go. Even though it doesn't really do anything, but it still kind of looks kind of cool. But anyway, sorry, getting back to Barry now. Yeah, the Bill Hader is surprisingly imposing. I mean, the dude's really fucking tall. I'm pretty sure he's like 6'3" or 6'4" or something. But like, you would think like, oh, some SNL funny guy is gonna play a hitman and be intimidating. He kind of is a little bit. I mean, sometimes like he's like. It's like there's some moments where you're like, yeah, don't fuck with that dude. I mean, he's also like Bill Hader though. He's also still Bill Hader, that like really good dude. But like he's also, a killer and kind of a crazy person. But yeah, he does a fantastic job. He's amazing. But I said before that I think this show's a little bit more dramatic than comedic. And some of the drama and the intense scenes, like you don't really the amount that this show is dark, like the dark tone that this show kind of brings out. Like some scenes are just like kind of floor you a bit. You're like, whoa, I did not expect this show to get that fucked up or that dark. Holy crap! Okay, this is our show. So yeah. Be kind of on the lookout for those really, really fucked up moments, especially at the very end. You're like, holy shit, man. How do you come back from that? But, yeah, so it's actually surprisingly insanely dark. The show just surprises you all over the place. I mean, let's just get into the characters a little bit. Obviously, Barry is the best part of the show. Obviously, Bill Hader as Barry is amazing. Like I said, kind of puts forward, you believe that he's this like proficient murderer and a skilled killer, basically a skilled fighter. He used to be a Marine and now he's a hitman. But the other side characters are also spectacular and work so well for what they were going for. Fuchs is actually played by the guy who played Milton in Office Space. Let me get you his name. Stephen Root. He plays Fuchs, who is like he's just that guy who kind of sets up the contracts for Barry. He's kind of like the man. He's almost like his manager, but also kind of a shitty person as well. He's like kind of in it for his own selfish means for money, but he also does care for Barry, and that is brought out a few times in the season. You see, what their relationship is like and how it kind of became that. Hank, NoHo Hank, is he's a Chechen gangster who's like the number 2 in this Chechen gangster family. Hank, other than Bill Hader as Barry, Anthony Carrigan as Hank is the hands down best part of the show. He's so funny. He's like the nicest, most polite mobster and psycho that you could ever meet, which is so it parallels perfectly what the show is, of this guy who is aspiring to be an actor and like a good person, but he's also a murderer. So it's like, well, you can't really be one or the other. They conflict with each other. So I think that's the character of Hank is very brilliant and hilarious. Mr. Cousineau, Barry's acting teacher, played by Henry Winkler. He is also hilarious, incredibly selfish, but like you love him for it. Like this, it's stereotypical actor, kind of like full of himself. He has his own book, he charges pretty ridiculous rates for his acting class, and it's pretty hilarious. He's great. He's amazing. Sally, Sally Reed, she's another actor in this acting class who kind of has a romantic thing going with Barry eventually, and you see how that develops. She's a very interesting character. She kind of comes from a little bit of a darker background. You don't really find that out until a little bit later, but she's also she's an interesting character because she's also an aspiring actress, and she's kind of selfish, and she doesn't really think about others. She just kind of thinks about herself, and you kind of see how she kind of develops as a character, which is kind of fun. And also Detective Moss, a chick who plays Detective Moss. What's her name? Paula Newsome. She does a really great job with the small part that she really plays in the first season, but she's also really great when she is in it. So yeah, everyone in Barry's acting class is hilarious. They all play very small roles, but they do it really well. So all the acting here is phenomenal and really hits every single point that they're trying to get across with every theme and every scene. Like, they make you, the emotions that the show wants you to feel, you feel. They execute everything flawlessly, which is signs of, really great direction and really great writing. And let's get into that a little bit. The direction first is, I love the interesting choices that they make. They do this thing where Barry has these visions or these fantasies in his mind, and they play out on screen, and it's pretty hilarious. And it's a very interesting way. And sometimes you can tell that it's a vision, but then at the very end they do something, they kind of switch it up where it's like, oh, this seems like a fantasy, and then it goes on for longer and longer, and you're like, oh, this isn't a fantasy. And they actually talk about that in the inside the episode at the very end of of said episode, and they bring that up as a specific directing choice. And that's just some of the cool shit that I really appreciate as a film buff, film nerd, and loving great stories and having them being crafted like that. And also, the writing is incredibly brilliant. Obviously can be witty and quick-witted, with those comedic beats, but also for the dramatic beats, shit comes back from the very first episode and the very last episode, and that's tying everything together and bringing everything back, and everything that has been done and you've seen before can come into play later is always a really great sign of a really awesome writing. And that's really great. And just the vision of the show is very consistent, that what they're trying to do, and they do it incredibly well. So yeah, phenomenal. Great job from everyone behind the scenes. It does incredibly well. Yeah, so when I was trying to look for criticisms about the show, and I was looking at what does the show not do perfectly? And I honestly couldn't really find any. I was thinking really fucking hard when I was watching it, and I'm like, man, it's very short, it's very concise, and it's to the point. 8 episodes, only half an hour length episodes in one season. It's just so good, man. I can't sit here and tell you something bad about Barry season 1. I started watching season 2, and it's also the same thing. It's just a little bit more holy shit, this is even more ridiculous than the first season. But yeah, man, if you haven't seen Barry on HBO, granted, if you don't have HBO, you probably haven't seen it, but it's worth watching, man. It's really great. I think it's one of the best shows out there right now. It's one of those where it's I don't think it's probably one of the best shows I've ever seen, but if someone would come and tell me oh, Barry's one of the best TV shows on television right now, I wouldn't argue with them. It's kind of like my relationship with the video game The Witcher 3. Yes, I loved that game and I spent countless hours in it, but is it my favorite video game of all time? No, it's not. But if someone was trying to argue that it's the best video game ever made, I wouldn't argue with them, because it's I can't really find a flaw in it. So I can't argue with someone who thinks this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. So that's kind of how I feel about Barry, season 1 at least. I started watching season 2 last night, and it's fucking phenomenal still. So yeah, I'll probably watch the second and third season, maybe get back to do another kind of how I did Ozark, where I reviewed season 1, and then later I just kind of binged the rest and watched and reviewed season 2 and season 3 like lumped together, because I'm pretty sure season 3 is out as well. So, and it won't take me that long to watch it, so I'll get back to you guys on that. So if you haven't seen Barry, check it out. It's pretty phenomenal, and don't let Bill Hader, since he's the face, is like, oh, like, he's just an SNL funny guy. Don't let that throw you off of how intense, suspenseful, and dark the show is. I mean, yes, it's really funny, but it's also really suspenseful. So just be on a lookout for that, but definitely check it out. It shouldn't be missed. It's really good. Hello, thanks for watching that clip of my episode of Nerd Out Sanctuary. I appreciate you watching. If you don't know, this is a video podcast about, movies, TV, video games, other types of entertainment, comic books, novels, maybe occasionally. I don't know, I don't really read that much, but when I do, I want to talk about it. So yeah, just know that there's a lot more of these, and I appreciate you if you give me a like and subscribe and watch more. If you're just if you're watching here on YouTube, know that this is also a podcast, an audio podcast. I'm on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play, so you can download my podcast episodes, listen to them while you're driving in the car, taking a shit, making dinner, doing your laundry, or whatever, when you're at work, when you're supposed to be working, but you're just kind of like, mindless, doing some mindless tasks while listening to my podcast. It's the shit. Hopefully you guys, get good recommendations out of me, and hope you guys keep enjoying my show. So yeah, thanks. And bye.